Thanks for listening to Stand Up with Pete Dominick, Louise Schiavone, in for Pete Dominick on POTUS, Politics of the United States for the People of the United States. With me to talk about these and many other issues is Jamie McIntyre. Jamie covered the Pentagon as a senior correspondent for CNN for 16 years, where we were colleagues, Jamie, and he is part of the editorial staff at military.com, where he writes the Line of Departure blog at lineofdeparture.com. Jamie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, interesting, a couple of the big headaches for the Pentagon have to do with the media, new and old, starting first with the old, and that is the issue of this Michael Hastings wanting to embed with troops, and he cannot possibly be surprised.
Yeah, Jeff Morrell said, could anybody be surprised? And and certainly I wasn't surprised. But the issue here is, in the wake of the Rolling Stone report, a couple of things. One is nobody disputed the accuracy of what Michael Hastings was reporting. In fact, to the extent there was criticism, is that the report was too accurate. It was too revealing about what was going on. And nobody involved, General McChrystal and his staff did not immediately raise the objection that some of these things were intended to be off the record or on deep background. But in the days that followed McChrystal's firing, and by the way, one of the reasons I think he did that was because he knew that the underlying offense, that really would be no defense to say, well, this stuff is supposed to be off the record, because he permitted this command climate that was contemptuous of the president, and that's just not something you can do. So I think he knew that it would look bad to try to say, hey, but it was supposed to be off the record. But in the days after that, many of the people in McChrystal's staff said that a lot of these conversations were in fact intended to be off the record. They were after our social events, particularly this anniversary celebration that took place in a cafe in Paris. So it's, and the other thing is, it's kind of interesting about Hastings' defense that all of this was, his defense, this is all on the record, is that the most damning comments that were made, and many people have noted that they weren't made by McChrystal himself, but by people around him, but most of the ones that really got him in trouble were attributed anonymously. If all of these things were supposed to be on the record, one would wonder why Michael Hastings didn't name any of the people. The person who described General McChrystal's meeting with the president the first time was attributed to, according to someone familiar with the meeting. A top aide. I mean, we sort of knew that they were McChrystal's people, but we didn't know who they were. So it doesn't surprise me at all that Michael Hastings would not be welcomed by some commanders. There's got to be this element of trust there for that to happen. And it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up embedding somewhere in the future once somebody decides to get over it. And when they clearly establish the ground rules ahead of time.
And you also, Jamie, are currently an adjunct professor of journalism at the University of Maryland. And as we both know as journalists, that you can have very high-power interview subjects who will tell you one thing, and then they'll say, "Okay, now I'm telling you this on the record. Now I'm shifting to my deep background voice." So when
you're a reporter in that situation, it's your obligation at that point where they say, "I'm going to go off the record." Answer is, you can stop it at that point. You can say, "No, General. We have to stay on the record. I don't want to go off the record." And then often you have a conversation that goes like this. Well, then I can't really tell you, I can't really explain why we're doing what we're doing because I need to discuss this off the record. And as a reporter, you then decide if you're going to receive this information on background, and you might even negotiate how it is you're going to attribute it. You might want to be attributed to nobody, and you might want to be able to, and you have this sort of discussion and debate. What apparently happened in the Michael Hastings case is that there was a general assumption, I think, that Hastings would cover the McChrystal, inside the McChrystal bubble, the same way most beat reporters kind of covered it, and nobody spelled out exactly, precisely what was on the record and what was off the record, at least if you're to believe Michael Hastings'
and
version of the story.
There was this bizarre thing that happened because of the volcano in Iceland, that he was in with Stanley McChrystal and his crowd for way longer than they had anticipated, and there is a friendliness that
and again,
emerges.
You make an assumption that somebody who's there, you become sort of part of the, become part of the team. But the thing that military officials have to remember is that we're reporters. We're not part of the team. And the other thing is that no matter how long the reporter's with you and how much access they have, you still have to do the right thing. That doesn't excuse the behavior of McChrystal and his staff. You know, off the record is not supposed to be a cover for misdeeds. What if you're a reporter and you're embedded with a unit and they tell you that this secret mission you're going on is off the record and they end up massacring civilians? I mean, as a reporter, you're not going to say, "Oh, sorry, I guess that's off the record. I can't report it." You know, so military officials, lawmakers, anybody in the public eye that deals with reporters has to know that there's really no such thing as totally off the record unless it's between just two people with a high degree of trust. And in particular, one of the people happens to be dead, then you could pretty much count that it's going to be off the record. But other than that, if it turns out that it's something very significant, you know, the reporter might sit on it for a while, they might attack it from another angle, they might get other sources on it. And so that's the other bottom line of this Michael Hastings thing, is that whatever journalistic sins Hastings may or may not have committed, the mistakes on the military side were much bigger. And that's why McChrystal lost his job, not because of Michael Hastings, but because of Stanley McChrystal.